The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension. But when Earl Spencer, Princess Diana's brother, took the stand, silence fell like a curtain. Across from him sat Queen Camilla, composed until the words began. One sentence in, her eyes trembled. 5 minutes later, she was in tears. Spencer didn't hold back. He spoke of betrayal, of affairs, of a royal silence that left Diana isolated. As the shocking truth spilled out under oath, Camilla crumbled in front of the world. Cameras rolled. The public watched. And the monarchy, once shielded by tradition, now faced a reckoning, decades in the making. Courtroom shock. The opening moments. The courtroom was packed, the press gallery buzzing, yet everything froze the moment the clerk called out his name. Earl Spencer. Diana's brother, once known for his protective rage during her funeral, now walked slowly to the witness stand. Every camera clicked, every breath held. Queen Camilla sat still, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. At first glance, she seemed calm, almost defiant. But as Charles Spencer took his seat, her jaw stiffened. Her eyes flickered, and the world knew something big was coming. This wasn't tabloid chatter or whispered rumors. This was sworn testimony in a courtroom, and the crown was officially on trial. The lawyer's opening question was simple. Lord Spencer, what can you tell the court about Princess Diana's final years within the royal family? A pause. Then Spencer leaned forward, his voice firm but heavy. She suffered, and we all knew why. A collective gasp swept through the room. Camilla blinked slowly, swallowing hard. That moment, that single sentence, changed everything. The trial had begun with legal expectations, but now it was something more. A royal reckoning, and it was being broadcast live around the world. Earl Spencer lays down the bombshells. What followed was nothing short of an emotional detonation. Spencer spoke plainly, deliberately. No hesitation, no backpedaling. He confirmed what many had long suspected, but never heard in a courtroom. Yes, there were affairs. Yes, there were lies. And yes, the palace allowed Diana to suffer in silence. She told me, he said, that she often felt like a prisoner. Her cries for help went ignored, not by the tabloids, but by those closest to her. He mentioned secret meetings, suspicious silences from royal aides, and even instances where Diana's security was removed without explanation. She wasn't just betrayed by a husband, he added. She was abandoned by a system. Every line built weight. Every word added pressure. Reporters scrambled to transcribe each revelation. Social media began flooding with real-time reactions. Hashtags like #DianaTruth and #Camilla in court began trending worldwide. The courtroom itself grew heavy, no longer just a space of law, but a chamber of truth decades in the making. And the eyes of the world fixed on Camilla. Camilla's public breakdown. As Spencer's words carved through the room like sharpened glass, all eyes shifted to Camilla. Her hands, once folded, now shook. Her posture slumped slightly forward. She tried to maintain her composure, but it was clear. The pressure was breaking through. When Spencer recounted Diana's pleas for emotional safety, pleas he claimed were deliberately ignored, Camilla's face turned pale. Her eyes welled with tears. She wanted to leave. She begged to leave, Spencer said. But the palace said no. They needed her image. At that, Camilla gasped. Her hands flew to her face as her body trembled. Then came the sobs, not quiet or controlled, but guttural and uncontrollable. Staffers rushed forward. The judge immediately paused the proceedings. For the first time in modern history, a queen consort was publicly falling apart inside in a courtroom. Outside, the media exploded. Headlines lit up. Camilla breaks down under oath. Diana's truth unleashed. The queen shattered. But inside those four walls, the tears told a deeper story, one of guilt, fear, and the burden of knowing too much for too long. The allegations, affairs, and betrayal. With the room back in session, Spencer pressed on, and the deeper he went, the harder it became to look away. He recounted how Diana often confided in him about Charles's continued emotional ties to Camilla. Even after marriage, she would come home from events in tears. She knew, Spencer said. She always knew. He spoke of hidden letters, some from Diana, others allegedly between Charles and Camilla, that Diana found and confronted him with. They weren't subtle, they were love letters, and they hurt her deeply. The gallery murmured. Even the judge looked rattled. Spencer painted a picture of emotional warfare inside palace walls. Diana, cornered and isolated, was made to feel paranoid when she voiced concerns. They gaslit her, he said, and then blamed her for breaking down. He mentioned nights when Diana would call him from Kensington Palace, weeping, questioning her own sanity. She didn't trust the walls around her. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. There was no shouting, no drama, just a man telling the world what it refused to hear when it mattered most. Royal reputation on trial. By the fifth hour of testimony, the trial was no longer just about legal matters. It had become a public referendum on the crown itself. The monarchy, once buffered from personal scandal by tradition and silence, was now exposed, raw, and reeling. Every claim Spencer made struck at the very heart of the institution. For decades, the royal PR machine carefully crafted a public image of grace, dignity, and redemption. Camilla, once criticized, had been rebranded as a loyal consort and stabilizing force. But now, that narrative was unraveling. Polls began shifting in real time. Social media showed an explosion of support for Spencer's bravery. Diana's old interviews were reposted millions of times. Sympathy flooded in from every corner of the globe. And the monarchy's image? Cracked, bleeding, on trial, both in the courtroom and in the eyes of the public. Legal and emotional pressures. The courtroom doesn't cool down. If anything, the pressure intensifies. After her emotional collapse, Camilla returns, not as the stoic queen consort the public is used to, but as a shaken woman now caught in a legal spotlight. Her eyes are rimmed with red. Her hands, usually steady, fidget with her scarf as she prepares for questioning. The lawyers waste no time. With Spencer's revelations fresh in everyone's minds, they circle Camilla like sharks. Their tone is firm but respectful. Every question carries the weight of history. Were you aware of Princess Diana's suffering? Did you and Prince Charles maintain contact during his marriage? Were there any efforts made to address her isolation? Camilla answers carefully, deliberately. Her voice wavers but remains audible. She claims she never intended harm, that she stayed away from public involvement, that her private feelings were kept out of respect for everyone involved. But the cracks are obvious. The public may have accepted Camilla over time, but in this moment, under oath, under pressure, her image falters. The queen consort's responses seem rehearsed. Her tone is cautious. and every word she speaks feels weighed down by unspoken truths. Meanwhile, Spencer watches from across the courtroom, calm, composed. His earlier testimony lingers in the air like smoke. The contrast is undeniable. Camilla appears reactive, defensive, while Spencer's narrative feels irrefutable. Outside, crowds begin forming near the courthouse gates. Some carry candles. Others hold signs bearing Diana's name. A storm is brewing, not just in the court, but across the country. And inside, the monarchy faces a kind of scrutiny it hasn't seen in generations. Charles's absence and reaction. While the trial unfolds under global attention, one absence grows louder by the hour. King Charles. The cameras scan the room repeatedly, hoping for a glimpse. But the king never appears. No statement, no remote testimony. Just silence. And in that silence, speculation thrives. Is he watching from Windsor? Was he advised to stay away? Or did he choose to remain absent from a reckoning decades in the making? Insiders claim he's been in seclusion, meeting privately with advisors. Others whisper of internal conflict, some urging him to make a statement, others warning against it. One source close to the palace says, "If he speaks, it could collapse everything. If he stays silent, it already has." Camilla's legal team reportedly pushed for Charles to attend in solidarity, but he refused. The court, meanwhile, continues without him. But his presence, or lack thereof, is felt in every corner. When Spencer is asked directly, "Did your sister ever blame Prince Charles for her suffering?" he pauses, then answers plainly, "Yes." That moment is volcanic. The weight of Charles's name, his history, his marriage all crash into the courtroom like a wave. And still, he says nothing. Outside the palace gates, public trust in the king, already fragile, is now in free fall. Historical resurfacing, Diana's pain retold. Spencer's testimony doesn't end with royal affairs and institutional silence. He dives deeper into memories that hadn't been spoken publicly in decades. He recounts Diana's final years in chilling detail, not as a prince's wife or as a global icon, but as a sister who was desperate, isolated, and afraid. He speaks of late-night calls where she would weep for hours, terrified of her surroundings. How she spoke of being watched, how her calls were sometimes cut short without explanation. She feared the system she was born into, he says. She told me once, "I feel like the enemy in my own palace." The courtroom is still, not even the reporter's type. He describes how Diana begged family members for protection, pleading to be allowed space, to live quietly, to be shielded from the storm. But her cries were ignored. He shares one specific night, 3 weeks before her death, when she told him, "If anything happens to me, please don't let them rewrite the story." That line echoes through the courtroom like thunder. Camilla looks away. Some jurors do too. Even the judge takes a long pause before moving forward. This is no longer about public figures or tabloid drama. It's about the erasure of pain and the people who allowed it to happen. Camilla's composure attempts, after hours of testimony that shredded royal reputation, Camilla is back on the stand. She tries to appear composed, dignified. Her voice is steadier than before, but only just. Her lawyer begins with soft questions, allowing her to frame herself as someone trapped by circumstances. "I never wanted this," she says. Not this attention, not this comparison, not this pain. She tells the court she tried to stay silent out of respect, that she knew the public had already made up their minds about her years ago. But I'm not the woman people think I am. Still, every word feels shadowed by Spencer's earlier statements. For each attempt at humanization, there is already a record of suffering on the other side. The public memory of Diana, the wounded, the betrayed, is too strong to be softened by a courtroom plea. Camilla admits her relationship with Charles was complicated. She says she tried to give Diana space, not interfere. But the court wants more than regret. They want clarity. Her voice cracks once more. She blinks hard. The queenly facade begins to crumble again. And though she's not crying this time, her eyes remain wet. The judge maintains order. But the energy in the courtroom has shifted. It's no longer a matter of if the monarchy is wounded. It's now about how deeply. Public reaction. Fury and empathy. Outside the courthouse, the energy is almost supernatural. Thousands line the streets, shoulder to shoulder, candles in hand, clutching faded photographs of Princess Diana. Some are dressed in black. Others wear Diana Forever shirts. There are children too young to remember her, yet still there, drawn in by the stories passed down like folklore. Inside, the atmosphere remains volatile. Every movement, every pause in speech, every tear is broadcast live across the globe. News anchors interrupt scheduled programming. Round-the-clock coverage dominates every network. Historians, former palace staff, royal experts, psychologists, they all weigh in, scrambling to make sense of history as it rewrites itself in real time. And the people? They have chosen sides. Some weep for Diana as if it happened yesterday. Her pain, once silenced behind closed doors, is now being voiced. Loud, raw, undeniable. Viewers from every continent sob at Spencer's words, at Camilla's breakdown, at the images of a truth long buried now clawing its way to daylight. Others are angry, furious even. Their fury isn't just aimed at Camilla or Charles or even the court. It's aimed at the entire institution. The crown itself has become a symbol of silence, complicity, and betrayal. A tweet that goes instantly viral reads, "She warned us, she begged for help, and they left her." It racks up over 1 million shares in 12 hours. Across the UK, spontaneous vigils erupt in cities and villages. Some gather in front of Kensington Palace, others outside Buckingham. Posters, handwritten letters, and flowers begin to pile up at gates that haven't seen public grief like this since 1997. People don't just remember Diana, they're mourning her all over again. But even amid the firestorm, a softer, more complicated conversation begins to emerge. There are those who look at Camilla's courtroom breakdown and see a woman cracking under a weight she's carried for years. Not everyone is ready to burn her crown. "She's not innocent," says one longtime royal analyst on air. But maybe she's not the villain we've made her out to be either. Comment threads, talk shows, and forums fill with debates. Some viewers believe Camilla's tears were genuine, proof of a tortured conscience. Others call them performative, a last-ditch defense from someone who built a life on someone else's ruins. Still, these voices are drowned out by the larger wave, a tidal shift in public trust. For many, this isn't just about Diana's past. It's about how the palace handled her pain and how they spun it. The monarchy's reputation, long protected by rigid tradition and tight-lipped loyalty, is now being disassembled by the very people it once tried to protect from the truth. Because the truth is out, and it's not arriving in one swift blow, but in a relentless storm of witnesses, receipts, tears, and unanswered questions. And with each new day of testimony, each new headline, the nation feels it more deeply. This isn't just the unraveling of a story. It's the unmasking of a legacy. The palace's damage control effort. As the courtroom battle unfolds in real time, broadcast live, replayed across networks, and dissected online, Buckingham Palace is in complete disarray behind closed doors. What was once a well-oiled machine of public relations and regal tradition now feels like a battlefield. Crisis meetings begin even before Queen Camilla steps down from the witness stand. Advisors are summoned from across departments. Communications directors, senior aides, digital strategists, and even former royal press secretaries are huddled together in marble-lined rooms that suddenly feel claustrophobic. The urgency is unmistakable. Some are still in suits, others in hastily thrown-on coats. Coffees line tables, phones buzz endlessly, laptops glow with headlines updating by the second. The message from leadership is short and sharp. Contain the fallout. Fast. Within hours, a carefully worded public statement is issued. Her Majesty the Queen Consort experienced emotional strain during a high-profile testimony. She is currently resting and remains committed to fulfilling her public duties. But the wording only raises more questions. Emotional strain? Resting. The ambiguity is deafening. What the palace leaves unsaid becomes the loudest sound echoing through the media. The press isn't satisfied. Neither is the public. Insiders whisper of infighting among the palace communications team. Some believe Camilla should issue a personal, televised address, perhaps even apologize or express vulnerability. Others argue for silence, fearing that any direct acknowledgement could backfire or confirm guilt. The divide is not just strategic, it's philosophical. Meanwhile, loyal courtiers scramble to reach King Charles, but he remains cloistered, reportedly deep inside Clarence House, surrounded only by a skeleton team. His silence is beginning to echo almost as loudly as Camilla's tears. Where is the king? Why hasn't he spoken? What does his absence mean? Royal biographers and media-friendly historians are quietly contacted. Some are invited onto morning talk shows and primetime panels. They gently begin floating alternative narratives. Camilla has suffered too, one says. We must remember, the crown carries a cost. This is not black and white. But the public is no longer in a mood for nuance. The footage of Camilla sobbing uncontrollably on the stand loops across the internet. It's been slowed down, captioned, and analyzed frame by frame. Was it a breakdown of guilt, of fear, or simply of a woman watching her entire legacy collapse in a single afternoon? Panel shows ignite across the globe. Some defend her, others accuse her. Few remain neutral. And still, the palace says nothing new. Behind palace walls, the mood turns grim. We're not in control of the story anymore, one aide reportedly says, head in hands. We're reacting, and it shows. Outside, the chaos continues. Thousands of citizens gather near the palace gates, many holding candles. Diana's image printed across posters, handwritten messages reading, "You were right," and "We never forgot." Some chant. Others sing hymns. The monarchy has faced scandal before, But this is different. This isn't a personal failing. It's an institutional exposure. Not just what was done, but what was allowed, what was denied, and what was deliberately buried. And at the eye of that storm stands Camilla, no longer the untouchable consort, not even the controversial other woman, but a symbol of a monarchy unraveling at the seams. She's wounded, she's exposed, she's human, but she is no longer protected. Broader implications for the monarchy. By the following morning, the courtroom's aftershocks were no longer confined to television screens. They had reached the very center of British political and constitutional life. What had begun as a courtroom examination of Queen Camilla's past had now evolved into a full-blown royal reckoning, a crisis not just of public image, but of moral legitimacy. Members of Parliament, previously reluctant to wade into royal affairs, began breaking ranks. Several MPs from across the political spectrum called for an official inquiry into Princess Diana's treatment, while she was an active member of the royal household. Others began drafting motions that could legally compel the release of internal royal communications. For the first time in decades, the question was being openly asked in the House of Commons. Did the monarchy deliberately sacrifice the well-being of one of its own to protect the crown? Editorials across the UK erupted. The Times, The Guardian, even traditionally pro-monarchy outlets like The Telegraph, ran with front-page commentary declaring, "This isn't just about Camilla. This is about the entire royal system." The pressure didn't stop there. Online, the response was fierce. Millions flooded social platforms with calls for accountability. The hashtags #Justice for Diana, #The Real Crown, and Royal Transparency now dominated global trends. Petitions launched overnight gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures demanding the declassification of royal correspondence and secret briefings from the late 1980s and early 1990s. Inside Buckingham Palace, the response was chaotic. Staffers were reportedly clocking in at dawn and working into the early hours of the next day, shredding documents, analyzing statements, coordinating crisis messaging. Morale was said to be at an all-time low. The Queen's communications team, which had once controlled headlines with elegance, now faced leaks, dissent, and internal panic. Some even speculated that multiple resignations were being quietly negotiated behind the scenes. Camilla's title, once restored through years of carefully crafted public rehabilitation, was now under direct threat. Behind palace doors, advisors were split. Some called for a strategic retreat, pausing or canceling her formal coronation altogether. Others demanded a public-facing response to save what could be salvaged. But the consensus was clear. Her future as queen consort was hanging by a thread. The generational divide became more visible than ever. Older monarchists pleaded for patience, reminding the public of the crown's enduring stability. But younger citizens, those who had grown up idolizing Diana, refused to look away this time. To them, truth was more sacred than tradition. The tale of Camilla's redemption, once heralded as a modern royal success story, was rapidly being rewritten. It now read as a warning, a story of image over integrity, of silence over sorrow, of consequence catching up with history. And yet, there was more to come. Because Earl Spencer's testimony, insiders revealed, was far from finished. And Diana's full truth? It hadn't even surfaced. Not yet. Cliffhanger. The reckoning continues. The judge calls for a final recess before adjourning the day's proceedings. The courtroom is drained, both emotionally and physically. Spectators are still whispering. Reporters are still typing. But the central figures, Camilla and Spencer, could not be more different in their exits. Camilla is led out through a private side door, head lowered, flanked by aides. She avoids eye contact. Her body appears limp, shoulders sagging with the weight of everything that has been said, and everything left unsaid. A single photo of her exiting, eyes red and lips pressed tight, will dominate tomorrow's front pages. Earl Spencer, however, walks calmly through the main corridor. Cameras flash. Reporters shout his name. He says nothing, but his face tells the story, a mix of closure and purpose. His message has been delivered. His sister's voice, long suppressed, has finally been heard. Outside, protesters chant, candles flicker, and somewhere in the distance, church bells ring as if echoing the enormity of what just occurred. A voiceover swells over slow shots of Camilla leaving the courthouse. The Queen is shaken. The monarchy is trembling. But is this the fall of the House of Windsor, or its moment of truth? A teaser clip plays. Files being opened, Charles shown in a tense phone call, William staring silently from a palace window. As Camilla left the courtroom, shaken and silent, one truth was clear. Diana's voice had returned through her brother, and the world was finally listening. The crown had buried the past, but the past had dug its way back up. And now, nothing would ever be the same again.